The Handkerchief by Great 78. Chapter 89. Wanderings and Wands. "What kind of game are you playing with this witch?" Lucius's voice sounded angry, but oddly curious. "I'm not sure what you mean, Father. What kind of game do you mean?" Draco asked guardedly. "Cut the shit, Draco. I went with Goyle to all of those houses, checked to make sure that all of those mudbloods were truly gone." "And they were, correct?" Draco asked, his voice steady but panic rising in his chest. "They were. However, your team killed one of them, correct?" "That's right," Draco said, fighting to keep his voice from wavering. "We killed one. What of it? Those were our orders." "Where was the body, Draco? Where were the parents?" "I went to the house. It was entirely untouched. No one was there, but there was no sign that any wizard had ever even been there. It wasn't desecrated like the others that were left empty or abandoned. I asked a neighbor. He said the Willinghams moved a year ago." Draco was speechless. This didn't make any sense. He had seen the body. Well, he saw the young wizard's hand lying on the ground. Had the young wizard's parents taken the body, cleaned everything up, and asked the neighbors to lie? That didn't make any sense. Then he remembered Hermione's house. There were enchantments that the mudblood must have set up before, ways to prevent us from destroying it the way we did the others," Draco offered. "If you mean in the same way that Granger's house was protected, that isn't the case. There were no enchantments placed upon this house. Can you truly tell me that in less than 24 hours the muggle parents managed to free themselves, dispose of their son's body, and leave the house as though they were going on holiday? Nothing was packed quickly. Everything was neat, tidy." Draco lowered his head. It did all sound suspicious. "What did Goyle say?" Lucius made a dismissing sound with his mouth. "Tch, you know Goyle. He notices nothing unless it's pointed out. But forget about the Willingham boy. The Dark Lord thinks he's dead. Everyone on your team agrees that he is dead, so it is done. I need you to tell me something else." "What would you like me to say?" Lucius crossed quickly to him, in a menacing manner. Unfortunately for his father, Draco had experienced far worse than him lately, and he barely flinched. "I would like for you to say that you are prepared to follow the Dark Lord's orders precisely. If you are told to kill, you kill. If you are told to torture, you torture. We cannot afford to fail here, Draco. My wand has been destroyed. Your mother's wand has a unicorn hair core. Any dark magic I do with it is never very strong. I know yours is the same. So you must be focused. We cannot fail. The price is too great." Draco thought for a moment. "What if I said that it's a price that I do not wish to pay? Then perhaps you are no son of mine. Perhaps I don't wish to be a son of yours." Lucius was dumbstruck. In all of his years of fatherhood, he had had total obedience. The idea that Draco might be his own person, with his own thoughts, had never occurred to him. "Your mother has ruined you. Don't speak ill of my mother. It's you that's tried to ruin me." Lucius was silent for a moment. Draco raised his wand to go, but Lucius placed a hand on his arm, surprisingly gentle. "I never meant to, Draco. I always thought I was doing the right thing by you, giving you power, status, wealth. Growing up, that's all I ever wanted. I thought if I gave it to you, you could be everything I always aspired to have. And now, Here you are trying to throw it away for a—" "I have everything I want, without all of that," Draco said evenly. The two men locked eyes, silver meeting silver. Draco did not try to hide anything. His father was no match for his power any more. He had more than power, status, and wealth. He had love. "I hope she is worth it," Lucius spat out. "She is," Draco replied firmly. His father was silent. Finally, Draco had to ask, "How did you know?" Lucius sighed, suddenly looking far older than his years. "You are my son. In spite of everything, our magic is similar. But yours is unique, of course, to you. I could feel it in her house, the magic you had done there. It was not dark magic, and it was not just a single spell or two. It was powerful, pervasive, everywhere in the house, and it was combined with hers. I might have been able to ignore certain things before that, but I could have no doubt after that." Draco lowered his eyes. "And will you tell anyone?" "Never!" "Is it because you're ashamed of anyone finding out, or because you want to protect me?" Now Draco could not keep his voice steady. "Both," said Lucius. The two men were silent a moment, and then, with a crack, Lucius disapparated. Draco stood in shock for a moment, then followed his father back to Malfoy Manor. Back in his room, Draco removed Snape's coin from his pocket. He asked, "What is it?" The answer was nearly immediate. "Contact her. Is anyone killed?" He replied, "Let me see what I can find out." He took his handkerchief from his pocket and spoke the password. Then, "Are you all right? Is anyone else killed or injured?" It was several long, agonizing minutes before his handkerchief cooled, and another 20 minutes or longer until her reply came. "Sorry, had to get a bit of privacy away from everyone. Emotions are very high. Alastor Moody was killed. Mundungus Fletcher was the Harry with him, and he saw Voldemort and disapparated immediately. And George's ear was sliced off. Lupin says it was done by Snape." So that was why Lord Voldemort thought that one of the imposter Harrys had been killed, and why Snape was asking about it. "I'm sorry to hear it. I know Moody was a good man. Can George's ear be mended?" "Molly says no, as it was removed with dark magic. Snape used the Sectum Sempra curse. It was his own invention, you know. I really believed for a while that he was on our side, but it's hard to imagine it after today. You and he know better than anyone what kind of damage that curse can do. George could have been killed." "I don't know, but at least he's still alive." "What about you? Did anyone see you following us? Were you punished for not attacking?"
"No one saw, but we were all crucioed, regardless. Voldemort is unhappy that Potter escaped again."
"I'm so sorry, Draco."
"And my father knows about us."
"What?" Draco smiled slightly to himself, despite the grimness of the evening's events. He could picture her perfectly, her eyes flashing, hair roiled up just so. He loved her so much.
"He says he won't tell anyone."
There were several seconds of waiting, then she replied, "Did he say why he wouldn't?"
"I asked if it was because he was ashamed of me, or because he wished to protect me because I was his son. He said it was both."
"I am so sorry, Draco."
"You have nothing to be ashamed or sorry about, Hermione. Trust me, I am neither ashamed nor regretful about you."
"I love you."
"I love you too, my." He took out Snape's coin once again. "You sliced George Weasley's ear off. Cannot be grown back." "Damn! I was aiming for Yaxley's wand arm. Just missed. I regret it."
Later that night,
Draco was asleep when his handkerchief warmed against his cheek. "Do you know where Ollivander is?" "No, the wand maker." "Yes, Harry had a vision. Voldemort was torturing him." "No, but now that I think of it, before he crucioed everyone at the meeting point, he mentioned needing to see Ollivander. I thought it was odd at the time, since Ollivander's shop is closed. I assumed the old wizard had skipped town." "No, I think Voldemort is holding him captive." "Let me see what I can find out." Where would Lord Voldemort keep prisoners? Azkaban was out since the Dementors had joined Voldemort's side. They apparently did not enjoy living on the island any more than the prisoners had, and were now roaming the cities and countryside in packs. Then a memory resurfaced, one that Draco had likely blocked out because of what had come after it. A piteous, horrific wail, issuing deep from within the bowels of Malfoy Manor. He spoke into the darkness. "Pym." There was a small crack as the elf appeared next to him. "Is the prisoner in our cellar named Ollivander?" An hour later he wrote back to her. "He is here, being kept in the cellar. I've asked Pym to check on him. Pym will take care of him, heal his wounds, make sure he gets food. I'm afraid I can't do more. If I were to try and break him out, we would likely both be killed."
"Thank you for checking on him. Mr. Ollivander was so kind when I first met him. He helped me try so many wands to find just the right one. We talked a bit about his wife. She was a muggle-born as well. He spoke of how they met, how much she had taught him over the years. It sounds like they have a beautiful love story. I hope she's okay."
Then Draco remembered the story he'd overheard about the prisoner in the cellar. It was a pureblood whose muggle-born spouse had been killed by Dolohov, and a couple of others the year before. Hermione did not need to know that. Fuck, he thought. More secrets. But once again he reasoned that there was nothing to be gained from her learning this. The similarities were too great. A pureblood, in love with the muggle-born, attacked by Dolohov. No, this was information that he would keep to himself. "I will do my best to see that he's taken care of. I remember him from when I got my wand, too. He is a very interesting old man. Good night, Mai." Draco lay back and thought about that day, nearly 6 years ago. His father had not wanted him to purchase a new wand. "Our vaults have several wands, from many of the Malfoy ancestors. I'm certain that one will suit him," he told Narcissa.
But Narcissa would not be swayed. "It is a rite of passage for a young witch or wizard to choose their own wand, or rather, for the wand to choose them. Draco is his own person. He is not simply another Malfoy."
She had gotten her way, and he and his mother had gone to Ollivander's shop together. Draco remembered how excited he had been, how much he wanted to try every single wand in the place. Until then, his only purposeful magic had been easy spells done with his mother's wand, a simple wand of elm wood. When they entered the shop, Ollivander bowed deeply to his mother, kissing the back of her hand. "Ah, Mrs. Malfoy, nee, black, 11 1/4, elm, and unicorn hair, unassuming and steady, but powerful." Draco hardly had the patience for this interaction.
"Mom, can I try out some wands now, please?"
Ollivander turned to him.
"Ah, yes. The young Master Malfoy. Already 11 and ready for Hogwarts, I see. My goodness, time does fly quickly. It seems not that long ago that your mother was here as an 11-year-old. Well, Draco, isn't it? Let us see what we can do."
The old wizard removed a measuring tape from around the back of his neck, and began measuring Draco's arms, back, around his head, the length of his ear. The measuring tape continued measuring long after Ollivander had stopped writing down measurements, allowing a quick quotes quill to record them. Draco was a bit befuddled as to the purpose of knowing that the distance between the 2 knuckles of his right thumb was exactly 1 1/8 of an inch.
Much to live up to, much to accomplish, and yet...
Ollivander flicked his eyes to Narcissa quickly, then back to Draco.
Still much to learn about life, and everything that it can be.
The old wizard gave a knowing smile.
The question is, young Draco, is the world made for you, or are you made for the world?
Whilst Draco pondered what the hell that could even mean, Ollivander flicked his wand, and a box flew down from the wall behind him, settling on a small table nearby.
I suppose only time will answer that question.
Ollivander held out the box to him.
Why don't you give it a try?
Draco looked down at the wand in the box. It was rather plain, without the adornment and bravado of Lucius's wand, and yet his hand felt drawn to it. Draco held his breath for a moment.
Hawthorn and unicorn hair. 10 inches, precisely. Reasonably springy,
Ollivander intoned. As Draco picked up the wand, small silver, green, and gold sparks flew from the tip. In the end, he only tried 1 wand that day. Together with his wand, he had done great things these past 6 years, earning top marks in class, creating unique magic, holding his own against the most powerful wizard ever to live, for a short length of time, anyway. Without the courage and willfulness of his mother, and the guidance of Ollivander, he had no idea if he'd even own that wand. It was strange to imagine living his life without it.
Chapter 90. Matrimony. A new minister. A few days later, Hermione messaged late at night, just as he was about to drift off to sleep. It had been a busy few days. Lord Voldemort had been in to question Ollivander a couple of times, and the old man was not in great shape. Pym was running low on calming draughts and blood-replenishing potions, and Draco had begun brewing at dawn the day after the chase over Surrey. "Are all French witches this difficult?" Draco laughed aloud, quietly, despite his exhaustion. He wrote back, "Is Fleur really that bad? She seemed all right years ago." "Sounds like you and Ron should expand your club to be the I Hate Victor Crumb and have an unrequited crush on Fleur de la Cour club."
"No, it won't fit on the buttons. That'll have to be the title of our manifesto."
"Ha ha, very funny."
"Besides, I'm about 95% certain that Fleur and I are distant cousins. So, what's she doing that's got everyone's knickers at a twist?"
"It actually isn't Fleur. It's her mother. She's truly quite nice, but a little overbearing. She's a bit like the French Molly, and there cannot be 2 Mollys in this house. Within 15 minutes of walking in the front door, she was already commenting about how dirty the oven was and whipping out her wand to clean it. Just in case you ever find yourself spending time around Molly Weasley, you need to know this. Only she knows how to cook and clean. Everyone else is just attempting it, and they're failing miserably."
"I shall keep that in mind, if I ever find myself in a roommate situation with Molly Weasley."
"Oh my God, Draco! Picturing that is just the kind of comedic gold that I needed tonight." The following night, a new message appeared on his handkerchief. "When you were a child, did you read children's stories like Babbity Rabbity and Her Cackling Stump, or The Fountain of Fair Fortune?"
"Of course. Didn't everyone?"
"No. Muggles had different stories. There are some similarities, I suppose, but they're generally quite different."
"What brought this up? Is Weasley finally getting ready to read a book in preparation for his NEWTs?"
"Very witty. No, the Minister of Magic was just here. He was gate-crashing Harry's birthday party. Apparently, Dumbledore left us some things in his will, and he was bringing them to us. He left me a book of children's stories called Beetle the Bard."
"Yes, we have that collection. They're widely considered to be as close to the original stories as possible. That seems an odd choice of inheritance." Was it left only to you?"
"Yes, only to me. He left the snitch that Harry caught in his first Quidditch match to him. And Ron got a magical object that Dumbledore invented. It turns the lights on and off without need of a wand. Harry was also supposed to be willed the Sword of Gryffindor, but as a historic artifact it cannot be given to one person."
Surely Dumbledore knew that, thought Draco. It seemed suspect that he'd leave it to a barely 17-year-old wizard on a whim. So, it sounds like he was just cleaning out his cupboards one day and started gifting things willy-nilly to people. I suppose I should keep an eye out in case he left me the potion scales he used at Hogwarts or something.
"Ha ha! We wonder what Dumbledore was trying to tell us. The snitch has writing on it. It says, 'I open at the close.'"
Draco felt that sounded a bit ominous. Snitches did open, it was true, but what could be inside of this one? Snitches were so small. Was it something that could help Potter with his quest? She wrote another message.
"I need to get to sleep. The wedding is tomorrow, and Molly will be in High Dungeon, starting at daybreak."
If ever there was a person that needed the assistance of a house elf, I'm pretty sure it's Molly Weasley.
"Only if it could be paid a fair wage, though."
Well, then, there's that plan scuppered. I'm amazed that the Weasleys can even afford this wedding, much less 6 more after this one.
"I am fairly certain that every Weasley after this is going to elope. Nobody wants a repeat of this week."
"Well, don't get any crazy ideas, Miss Granger. I'm fairly certain that my mother has been planning my wedding since I was 8. How do you feel about a fountain with euphoria elixir, and riding away from the reception on a Pegasus?" I'm only kidding, our wedding would never have anything so gauche."
"Good, because I kind of had my heart set on a fountain of Felix Felicis, and riding away from the reception on a dragon."
He chuckled, then wrote, "I will not lie to you. I would not be opposed to that. I might actually pay money to make that happen."
The following morning there was a fervour about the house, an energy that Draco could not place, but that put his teeth on edge immediately. At breakfast, Bellatrix was humming tunelessly, black eyes dancing around, and grey teeth chomping with unabashed, open-mouthed pleasure on her fried egg and toast. Even Pettigrew smiled a bit over his cheese omelette. Lucius was mysteriously absent, and Draco and Narcissa caught each other's eye questioningly throughout the meal, neither of them certain what was happening, but clearly neither of them feeling all that great about it. "Bellatrix," Narcissa began hesitantly, "how are things going?"
"Swimmingly, I would say."
A bit of fried egg fell out of Bellatrix's mouth as she spoke. Draco closed his eyes. The ingredients of euphoria elixir: shrivel fig, porcupine quills, peppermint sprigs, saprophyros beans, wormwood.
"Ah, I see. How so?" Narcissa asked politely.
"Let's just say, by this time tomorrow, there might be a new world order."
What could that possibly mean? Draco turned his worried eyes to Narcissa, finding the emotion reflected in hers as well. Geranua seeds, catawba bark, hibiscus flower, goji berries, jasmine. Later in the afternoon, his dark mark burned. He disapparated immediately, arriving at the Dark Lord's side, along with nearly every other Death Eater. They were gathered once again in the large, formal Malfoy dining room, and out of force of habit, Draco glanced at the space above the table to confirm that no one was waiting there to die. Then he caught the eye of Snape and remembered to put up his walls of occlumency.
"My biggest plan to date is in the final stages. We are very close. The ministry shall be taken tonight, after most of the workers are gone. Pious Thickness is poised to take over as Minister of Magic, and the rest of the upper echelons of the ministry will fall in line or be killed in the process."
There were murmurs amongst the group. Lord Voldemort continued.
"We shall use the same teams as the Night Potter was moved, entering the Ministry and dividing up the departments to search. Anyone you find will be brought to the courtroom in the dungeons. They will be questioned there. If they are on our side, they may continue to work with us within the Ministry. If they are not, they shall go the same way as Albus Dumbledore and Alastor Moody."
Sycophantic laughter followed this statement.
"Be prepared to go in 1 hour."
With this final proclamation, Lord Voldemort strode out of the room. Draco hurried up the stairs to his own suite, warding the door as quickly as possible, and withdrawing his handkerchief. To his great surprise, it warmed in his hand, and a message from Hermione appeared before he could say anything.
"Do I have skinny ankles?"
Momentarily thrown off, he replied back, "Do you want chubby ankles?" Her answer came a moment later.
"Sorry, one of Ron's relatives is a real piece of work. She truly does get under people's skin."
"Hermione, this is important. Is there anyone in the Order who currently works for the Ministry of Magic?"
"Let me think. As far as I know, off the top of my head, it's only Kingsley and Tonks."
"The wedding is tonight, correct?"
"Yes."
"So, will they both be there for that?"
It was a few minutes before she was able to reply. "I was just in the seating area and had a look around. I only saw Tonks here. Kingsley isn't in attendance. Perhaps he had to work tonight. Any reason why you ask?"
He was expecting this question, knew that it was coming as he left the others downstairs, intent upon getting to his room to ask her. He sent back a half-truth answer. Voldemort was musing about which people within the Ministry were part of the Order. That's all.
He thought about telling her, but realized that nothing good could come of that. Even if she could somehow convince the Order members there at the wedding that she had a brainwave or a premonition of some sort about a potential attack at the Ministry, all they would do is rush into the Ministry with a half-cooked plan, and very little hope of changing anything. Lord Voldemort already had Thick Ness Imperiust, already had his minions in place in various departments within the Ministry. He would be arriving with a small army, able to imperious others to do his will easily. If the dozen or so members of the Order who were at the wedding showed up, it would be a bloodbath. All that tonight was going to do was to bring this fight out into the open. No longer could every witch and wizard in the country ignore what was happening. With any luck, and with every hope, those women and men would choose sides and stand up for what was right. The group of Death Eaters met in the flue parlor of the manor to go over the plan. "Bellatrix, your team will go to Level 1, the Minister's offices. Selwyn, Level 2, to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Snape, Level 3, Magical Accidents. McNair, 4, Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures." Draco couldn't help but notice the look of smug satisfaction on McNair's face. He had no doubt that the cruel man, who had served as executioner for the same department, had requested that floor specifically. "Dolov, you take the Department of International Magical Cooperation on Level 5. Level 6 will be Goyle, the Department of Magical Transportation. And finally, Jugson, go to Level 7, Department of Magical Games and Sports. Whoever clears their department first, bring down any prisoners to the Wizengamot courtrooms, and we will mount an attack on anyone left in the Department of Mysteries. Some of you know your follow-on assignments that will come after any enchantments have been broken." The group flew into the Ministry of Magic, directly from the parlor at Malfoy Manor. Draco knew from past visits to the Ministry that there was ordinarily a young witch or wizard at the welcoming desk, but tonight the chair sat thankfully empty. Lord Voldemort turned and spoke to the group.
You have your assignments. Get moving." The group moved en masse to the lifts, jostling each other to get inside. Jugson's team got out first at the first stop, and shortly after their lift resumed, Draco heard one of the other lifts stop to let out Goyle's team. Within a minute or two, only he, Selwyn, Travers, and Nott remained in their lift. Selwyn spoke.
"The Wisingamot offices should be empty. They stop hearing cases at noon on Fridays, and everyone clears out of there by 2 o'clock. Nott, you will check the improper use of magic office and the counterfeit spells office. They're very close together. Travers, you will look into the misuse of muggle artifacts office. Malfoy, you're with me. We'll be checking the auras office."
Draco's heart was racing. If Shacklebolt was in the building, he was in that office. They stepped out of the lift and into the corridor. Travers and Nott looked at the directory arrows to find their assigned offices to check. Draco followed Selwyn closely. They rounded the corner into the bullpen of the Aura's office. Selwyn raised his wand and stunned the only person visible, a short man with dark hair and dark eyes, whose wand was raised towards them. As the Aura swayed on his feet and collapsed to the floor, Draco cast a non-verbal stunning spell to the back of Selwyn. The Death Eater fell to the floor as well. Another man stood up from behind a short wall, wand raised at Draco. Draco recognized him as Kingsley Shacklebolt, and lowered his wand. "Shacklebolt, you need to get out of here as quickly as possible. Let everyone at the wedding know that he's taking over the ministry."
"You're the wizard that confounded the other Death Eaters during the pursuit. You saved us with that impediment, Jinx,"
Shacklebolt said in mild confusion. "Yes, and now you need to get the fuck out of here, fast. There are 2 more down the hall, and I can't confound or stun everyone. Eventually somebody will notice."
"Show me your face,"
the wizard's deep, commanding voice instructed him. "For what purpose?" Draco asked warily. He knew that Hermione had needed to tell Shacklebolt a bit about why this particular Death Eater had helped them that night. He wasn't sure what she had said, but he knew that she had likely revealed more than she wanted to. But she was smart. She had no doubt protected herself enough not to tell him Draco's identity.
"If we have someone on the inside, I make it my business to know who that is."
Shacklebolt's voice was calm, far more steady and even than Draco's would have been in the same position. Draco raised his non-wand hand and lifted his mask. The 2 men stared at each other for a moment before the older wizard gave a soft whistle.
"How in the hell did you manage to convince Hermione Granger that you were on our side, Malfoy?"
"She can be a pretty trusting witch," Draco said with a smirk. Then his face hardened once more.
"Now, seriously, Shacklebolt, you need to get out of here. There isn't much time. Send out a warning. He's taking over the ministry tonight. Hermione and any other Muggleborns and enemies of the Dark Lord need to go into hiding. Anyone within the ministry right now who isn't with us is going to be killed. The Dark Lord and Bellatrix were going directly to the minister's office. I'm fairly certain that Scrimmager is already dead. Is there a flue in here that you can use?"
Without another word, Shacklebolt turned on his heel and strode to the far wall. He cast a muffling charm to prevent Draco and anyone else from hearing what he said, then tapped his wand in the wall on 4 places. The fireplace magically appeared, into which the wizard tossed a handful of flue powder. He spoke into the green flames, then turned to meet Draco's eyes. The older wizard nodded once at him, firmly, then stepped inside the fireplace and spun away. In an instant, the fireplace retracted and magically disappeared. 2 seconds later, Travers and Nott rounded the corner, a young witch walking between them, with her hands magically bound together, eyes blank with an imperious stare.
"Did you hear noise from back there?"
Travers asked keenly, gesturing to where Kingsley had been standing only minutes before. "Yeah, it was one of those ridiculous memos they have floating around here." Draco lied smoothly. Found one, did you? We did too. He managed to stun Selwyn, but I stunned him back right after. That's John Dawlish. I recognize him. Nott spat upon the ground. He's been by Knott Manor a few times, searching for dark artifacts. He's book smart. He was 4 or 5 years ahead of me at Hogwarts, but doesn't seem to be able to come up with an original thought of his own to save his own skin. Probably easy to control.
Draco bound Dawlish's hands and revived him.
Thought you could take out one of ours all by yourself, huh, Dawlish?
I wasn't.
Confundus, Draco whispered, cutting in before the wizard could possibly reveal that he hadn't been here alone. Dawlish looked around as though he was uncertain who he was, much less who had been there a moment ago. Travers performed an innovate on Selwyn, and the 6 of them moved to the lift.
Damned wand, Selwyn grumbled. I had to go into my vault and find one from the Selwyn ancestors. It is a bit slow and resistant to me. I can't believe this tosser got the jump on me.
It's all right. I had your back,
Draco said. His handkerchief warmed in his pocket, but there was no possible way to check it in the small, crowded lift. He fell back a bit in the hallway of level 9, as the group made their way to the courtrooms. He slipped the handkerchief from its hiding spot and whispered, "Vinca Major." He unfolded it, pretending to search for a clean spot to wipe his brow with. "Kingsley sent his Patronus to the wedding reception to say that the ministry had fallen. We don't know if everyone got out in time. We are in Muggle London. Harry and Ron are changing into Muggle clothes." There was no time to respond. Draco and the others entered the courtroom. He and the other Death Eaters found seats along the sides after removing the imperious curses from their wards and pushing Dawlish and the witch into the centre of the floor to gather with the other prisoners. He was pleased and a bit repulsed to notice Dolores Umbridge amongst them. He scanned the crowd of Death Eaters to see who was missing. Several had appeared to bring their charges to be deposited into the centre of the courtroom, only to leave again. As he sat there watching, he was a bit surprised when Dolohov and Roll suddenly disapparated. Others left soon after, and Draco realized that they must have had a follow-on mission. Lord Voldemort began to speak from the Supreme Mugwomp's seat. "You have been brought here as members of the old regime. I stand before you now, offering you the chance to establish a new world order. You may join us, or you will be killed. The choice is yours to make." The young witch that Travers and Knott had brought, as well as an ancient wizard from magical transportation, were the only ones who stood. "I'm not going down without a fight," the witch's voice quavered.
"And I was a coward, and missed my chance to help bring you down the first time. You cannot do this again,"
the elderly wizard said angrily. Voldemort's wand arm raised, almost lazily. "Avada Kedavra," he said in his cold, high voice. The 2 dissenters crumpled as though they'd been crushed by a large boot. Draco struggled to keep his face neutral. "Very well. Anyone else? No? Well, then, to new business. Let me be the first to introduce you to the new Minister of Magic, Pious Thickness." Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great 78.